What if everything we thought we knew about ancient Egypt's technology was wrong? Imagine colossal pyramids, built with pinpoint precision, intricate carvings, etched into stone with the delicacy of a jeweler's hand, and complex medical practices that rival our modern understanding. All without the machinery or tools we rely on today. For centuries, we've looked at the pyramids and seen tombs. But what if they were something more? The remnants of a forgotten science. A whisper from a civilization that once understood the world in ways we have barely begun to rediscover. Beneath the burning Egyptian sun, the Great Pyramid of Giza casts a shadow that stretches not only across the desert but across time itself. An enigma so vast that every grain of sand around it seems to guard a secret. The air of Giza hums with mystery. Towering limestone giants rise from the golden dunes, their weathered faces still defying the passage of more than 4,000 years. The symmetry, the angles, the precision, it all feels impossible. No computers, no cranes, no steel. And yet somehow, an architectural perfection that engineers today still struggle to replicate. The deeper one looks, the more haunting the question becomes. How did the ancient Egyptians do it? Were they simply master craftsmen with endless time and manpower? Or did they possess knowledge, technology, even that history has long since buried? The Great Pyramid of Giza, standing 146 meters tall in its prime, was aligned almost perfectly with true north. Not magnetic north, but true north, within a fraction of a degree. The base measures so precisely that its sides vary in length by less than 20 centimeters across more than 230 meters. Even today, with lasers and satellites, replicating such accuracy at that scale would challenge modern builders. And yet, this was accomplished more than 4 millennia ago, with nothing more, supposedly, than copper chisels, wooden sledges, and human will. It seems almost absurd, doesn't it, to think that hands alone could achieve what machines now struggle to match. When sunlight hits the pyramid's faces at dawn and dusk, the precision becomes even clearer. Its orientation captures the sun's cycle with a perfection that feels deliberate, like a message encoded in geometry. Some researchers suggest this alignment symbolized the pharaoh's connection to the heavens, but others suspect it was something deeper. An understanding of the Earth's axis, astronomy, and mathematics that surpasses what we typically credit to the Bronze Age. The stones, themselves, weighing between 2 and 80 tons, were cut in place with joints so tight that even a razor blade cannot slip between them. To achieve such tolerance without steel tools or diamond blades defies reason. Mainstream archaeology tells us that tens of thousands of workers, not slaves, but skilled laborers, toiled for decades, using simple levers, sleds, and ramps. The logic is sound, supported by fragments of evidence, unfinished quarries, ancient graffiti, and primitive copper tools found near work sites. Yet, a growing number of engineers, stonemasons, and physicists look at the results and quietly shake their heads. The math doesn't add up. Copper cannot cut granite with that level of precision. Ramps long enough to haul blocks to the upper tiers would require more material than the pyramid itself. The logistics, the force, the control, the coordination seem almost superhuman. Every block tells a story of contradiction. In the heart of the Great Pyramid, the king's chamber is lined with massive granite slabs weighing up to 70 tons each, hauled from quarries over 800 kilometers away in Aswan. These blocks were not just stacked but fitted, precisely leveled, perfectly aligned. The ceiling beams, carved from single pieces of stone, rest so delicately balanced that they have survived thousands of years of earthquakes without collapse. Some of these surfaces are so finely finished that under a microscope they reveal tooling marks that resemble the effects of high-speed cutting. Could simple pounding stones and copper chisels have achieved that? Or did the Egyptians use methods, vibration, sound, or some mechanical process that we no longer understand? There is a paradox in the stones. Every attempt to explain them leads to more questions. We can replicate some of their achievements with modern equipment, lasers, cranes, hydraulic cutters, but only with immense difficulty. And yet, These monuments were built by a civilization that, according to our textbooks, hadn't even discovered the wheel for transport during the earliest pyramid phases. Something doesn't fit neatly in the historical puzzle. Perhaps we've been looking at the pyramids, not as laboratories, but as mysteries too sacred to question. The precision is not limited to the Great Pyramid alone. Across Egypt, temples like Abu Simbel, Karnak, and Luxor exhibit the same uncanny geometry and symmetry. The statues of Ramses to stand with flawless balance and mirror-like accuracy from left to right. The Serapeum of Saqqara, a subterranean labyrinth of 100-ton granite boxes, each polished to near perfection, pushes the boundaries even further. These artifacts, carved deep underground in confined tunnels, suggest an understanding of measurement and mechanics that surpasses the limits of simple hand tools. So we're left with two possibilities. Either the Egyptians were geniuses of precision beyond what we have acknowledged, or they inherited knowledge from an even older civilization, one whose technological secrets vanished in the sands of time. As the desert wind whispers through the ancient corridors of Giza, one can't help but wonder, did the ancients leave behind a message, one written not in words, but in the language of stone and stars? Because if they did, then perhaps the question isn't whether the Egyptians had advanced technology, but whether we have lost the ability to recognize it when we see it. For all the wonders the ancient Egyptians left us, one thing is conspicuously absent: the tools that made it all possible. In the shadow of the Great Pyramid, archaeologists have unearthed fragments of copper chisels, wooden sleds, and dolerite pounding stones. These are presented as the instruments that shaped one of the greatest architectural feats in human history. Yet when modern stonemasons attempt to reproduce Egyptian craftsmanship using these same primitive implements, their results fall laughably short. Granite, the material used in many of Egypt's most impressive monuments, has a Mohs hardness of around 6.5, far harder than copper, which dulls almost instantly on contact. Even pounding granite with dolerite yields crude, uneven results. So how were the smooth faces, the sharp internal corners, the mirror-polished finishers achieved? This question unsettles both skeptics and scholars. Some insist that the Egyptians must have possessed a technique we simply haven't rediscovered, perhaps abrasives, mixed with quartz, sand, and water, or repetitive polishing that took years. Others whisper of lost alloys, forgotten chemical treatments, or tools powered not by muscle, but by energy. The most radical theories propose that the ancients might have understood principles of resonance, vibration, and sound far beyond our own use of them. After all, every stone has a frequency, and sound waves, if harnessed correctly, can cut, shape, and even levitate objects. Could this be the key behind the mystery? It sounds fantastical, yet scattered evidence from ancient texts and depictions hints at a civilization profoundly attuned to acoustics and vibration. Mainstream archaeology scoffs at such ideas, preferring the narrative of persistence and labor. But the mystery deepens with the tools that don't exist. We've found the chisels, yes, but not the saws large enough to cut the massive blocks of granite in the Serapeum of. We've found decorative hammers, but not the machinery capable of hollowing out giant statues from single blocks of stone. Even the ancient Egyptian depictions themselves rarely show the act of cutting stone, as if the process were a guarded secret. In some carvings, priests are shown holding tuning fork-like objects, or strange coiled instruments near stone structures, symbols dismissed as ceremonial, yet eerily reminiscent of vibrational devices. A few researchers have speculated that the Egyptians may have had access to some early form of electrical energy. This notion often points to the Dendera temple, where a relief appears to depict what looks astonishingly similar to a modern light bulb, a bulb-like shape connected to a cable held by figures resembling technicians. Mainstream scholars interpret it as a stylized lotus flower with a snake emerging, a mythological symbol. But the resemblance is uncanny. Add to that the discovery of the Baghdad battery, a 2,000-year-old artifact capable of generating small electrical currents, and the idea of ancient power sources doesn't seem entirely impossible. But perhaps we're asking the wrong question. Maybe the Egyptians didn't rely on the same kind of technology we imagine: metal and gears, wires and engines. Perhaps their mastery was rooted in principles of natural science, geometry, and energy, forces embedded in the world itself. They may have known how to read the Earth's subtle vibrations, how to channel magnetism, or how to align architecture with celestial mechanics to create stability and power. Their monuments, after all, are not just physical marvels. They're mathematically alive, resonating with proportions found in nature, music, and even the human body. It's tempting to dismiss such thinking as mysticism. But when we hold a laser level to the pyramids, when we measure their angles and examine their cores, the evidence is clear. These were not primitive builders groping through trial and error. They were precise, deliberate, and informed by principles that may have been passed down from a forgotten epoch. The tools they used may never be found, not because they rusted away, but because they weren't tools as we understand them. They might have been knowledge, formulas, or techniques hidden in rituals, chants, and geometry, encoded in a form that transcended metal and machine. Even if we accept that the Egyptians somehow shaped those colossal stones, one riddle remains. How did they move them? Each block of the Great Pyramid weighs on average 2.5 tons, some exceeding 70. Millions of them were transported, lifted, and positioned with millimetric precision. The traditional theory paints an image of immense ramps stretching into the desert, armies of laborers dragging sledges, and overseers shouting commands beneath the unforgiving sun. Yet the physics are daunting. The ramp necessary to reach the pyramid's apex would have required more material than the pyramid itself, and the labor to build and dismantle it would rival the construction of the monument. No evidence of such a structure has ever been found. So how were the stones lifted? Modern experiments show that water can dramatically reduce friction. In 2014, researchers discovered wall paintings depicting workers pouring liquid in front of sledges. When replicated, the results were astonishing. Wetting sand cut the force required to drag massive stones by half. Could it be that the Egyptians used a sophisticated understanding of simple physics to their advantage? Perhaps the ramps weren't vast inclines, but modular systems of levers, counterweights, and water-assisted sledges. This explanation satisfies some, but not all. Moving a 70-ton granite block through narrow tunnels or up vertical shafts still strains credulity. Alternative thinkers propose that the ancients might have mastered a different method, one that manipulated gravity itself. Legends from the Arab chroniclers speak of stones that moved by sound, of priests chanting sacred tones as blocks floated into place. In Tibet, there are accounts of monks using trumpets and drums to levitate rocks, observed by astonished European explorers in the 20th century. While no scientific proof supports these stories, they persist, echoing across cultures and ages. Could some force, invisible but powerful, have played a role in Egypt as well? If the Egyptians understood resonance deeply enough, it's conceivable they could have used vibrational energy to move or ease the weight of stone, not by defeating gravity, but by harmonizing with it. Then there's the question of the pyramid's internal structure. The shafts, chambers, and relieving spaces, built with such accuracy that they seem designed for more than just stability. Some engineers have suggested they function like energy collectors, their geometry focusing natural electromagnetic fields. The placement of quartz-rich granite in key areas could have allowed for piezoelectric effects, energy generated by pressure on crystal structures. The pyramid, then, might have acted as both monument and machine, a structure resonating with the earth itself. It's an extraordinary hypothesis, but one supported by measurable facts. Electromagnetic readings around the Great Pyramid have shown anomalies that defy easy explanation. Yet even without invoking lost science or levitation, there's something deeply mysterious about how seamlessly everything fits together. The Egyptians were not improvising. They were executing a plan of astonishing sophistication. They measured the Earth's curvature, encoded the value of pi and the golden ratio in their architecture, and aligned their monuments with celestial bodies with laser-like precision. Whether by physical or metaphysical means, they commanded materials on a scale we still find daunting. In the quiet heat of the Giza Plateau, the mind drifts toward the unimaginable. Rows of workers singing rhythmic chants as blocks glide silently into place, overseen by priests who understood the hidden harmonies of the world. It is both poetic and unnerving to consider that what we call impossible might once have been second nature. Perhaps the mystery of movement wasn't about defying physics at all, but about mastering it in a way we've long since forgotten. When we look beyond the raw engineering of Egypt's monuments, a subtler, more haunting pattern begins to emerge, a fusion of science, symbolism, and spirituality carved into every wall. The Egyptians did not separate technology from theology or medicine from magic. To them, knowledge was sacred. Every temple, every carving, every hieroglyph was both art and data, a codified system that encoded their understanding of the universe. The deeper we examine it, the more it feels as though the ancients were trying to tell us something about how the world truly works, only we no longer speak their language. Inside the Temple of Dendera, reliefs stretch across the ceiling depicting scenes of creation and illumination. Among these is one image that has stirred fierce debate, the so-called Dendera light. At first glance, it appears to show a bulb-shaped object connected by a cable to a box held aloft by priests. Skeptics say it's a lotus flower, birthing a serpent, a symbol of life. But others, with a spark of imagination, see something uncanny, a glass bulb glowing with electricity. If the Egyptians indeed understood electricity, even in a rudimentary form, it would rewrite everything we know about ancient science. The discovery of the Baghdad battery, a clay jar capable of producing a mild electric charge, proves at least that ancient civilizations grasped the basics of energy generation. Could Dendera's images be a record of similar experimentation long before modern science gave it language? Medicine, too, offers clues of sophistication far beyond their era. Ancient papyri, the Ebers, the Edwin Smith, and others reveal surgical techniques that would make Hippocrates proud. The Egyptians performed trepanation, resetting of fractures, and dental surgery. They used honey as an antibacterial agent and willow bark as a painkiller centuries before aspirin was invented. Some mummies have been found with prosthetic toes and limbs designed for balance and comfort, suggesting not only surgical skill, but biomechanical understanding. And yet, these weren't crude experiments. They were practiced procedures, handed down through generations, the product of an organized, scientific tradition. Then there's the enigma of the Serapeum of Saqqara, an underground necropolis housing gigantic granite sarcophagi, each weighing up to 100 tons, carved with such precision that their inner walls are smoothed to within fractions of a millimeter. Many of these boxes show no hieroglyphs, no decorative purpose, only the perfection of geometry itself. Were they truly meant for bulls, as the official story claims? Or did they serve a different, perhaps energetic or experimental purpose? The resonance within these chambers is palpable. Speak within one, and your voice transforms, amplified as though the stone itself were alive. Some researchers believe this acoustic design was intentional, that temples and tombs were engineered to manipulate sound frequencies, creating altered states of consciousness for ritual or communication. We see similar patterns in their architecture. The placement of columns, the curvature of walls, the alignment of corridors, all seem to follow mathematical laws of harmony. The golden ratio, phi, is embedded in countless designs, from statues to sanctuaries. These ratios aren't decorative, they are functional, maintaining equilibrium and resonance. Modern acoustic engineers have found that certain chambers in Egypt's pyramids resonate at frequencies matching the human brain's alpha waves, the same frequency range associated with meditation and deep focus. Coincidence or conscious design? And then there are the stars. The pyramids at Giza align with Orion's belt, a constellation associated with Osiris, god of rebirth. Their layout mirrors the celestial pattern with remarkable accuracy. Ancient texts describe the pharaohs all ascending through the star shafts to join Osiris among the stars. Poetic? Yes, but also strangely literal. Those shafts, measured carefully, align not randomly, but precisely with Orion and Sirius as they appeared in 2500 BCE. This is not the work of mere stonemasons. It is the product of astronomers, physicists, and engineers working in concert. The deeper one looks, the clearer it becomes. Egypt's monuments are not merely tombs, temples, or palaces. They are data repositories. Every stone carries encoded information about geometry, astronomy, and acoustics. They may have served as living laboratories, designed to test how matter, energy, and consciousness interact? If so, then much of their magic was simply science we've forgotten how to read. Their gods were not supernatural beings, but archetypes of natural forces. Ra as light, Osiris as renewal, Thoth as knowledge and measurement. Perhaps what we call myth was, to them, a scientific language wrapped in metaphor. If this interpretation holds, then our ancestors weren't fumbling in the dark. They were shining a light, one that we allowed to flicker out. Their knowledge didn't vanish by chance. It was erased by time, war, and the arrogance of forgetting. Every civilization rises on its mastery of knowledge, and falls when that mastery is lost. For Egypt, that loss came not in a single moment, but through a slow unraveling. Floods, invasions, and religious revolutions stripped away layers of their legacy until the brilliance of the Old Kingdom was buried under the sands of history. The Library of Alexandria, once the greatest repository of ancient wisdom, perished in flame. Within its scrolls may have lain the last written records of technologies, sciences, and philosophies that stretched back thousands of years. When it burned, humanity didn't just lose books. It lost memory. As power shifted from pharaohs to conquerors, the purpose of Egypt's monuments was forgotten. What had been instruments of science became objects of superstition. Temples turned to ruins. Scholars turned to priests. The precise understanding of energy, sound, and form was replaced with mysticism and myth. The idea that a civilization so ancient could be so advanced became unthinkable. We preferred to see them as primitive builders rather than sophisticated scientists. It made the narrative easier to control, the past less threatening. Yet, every so often, the desert gives back a fragment, a tool that doesn't fit, an alignment too perfect to be accidental, an artifact whose function we cannot explain. These moments force us to confront an uncomfortable possibility that progress is not linear. Humanity's story may not be a straight climb from ignorance to knowledge, but a cycle, rising, falling, remembering, and forgetting. Perhaps the Egyptians inherited fragments of an even older civilization, one that vanished after a cataclysm, leaving only scattered clues behind. The ancient texts speak of Zeptipi, the first time, an age when the gods walked among men and taught them the arts of civilization. Maybe those gods were not divine beings, but survivors of a lost scientific culture. The fall of Egypt's knowledge serves as a warning. Our own civilization, with all its power and technology, is not immune to the same fate. A few centuries of neglect, a few wars, and our satellites, reactors, and digital archives could vanish as completely as theirs did. In their place, our skyscrapers might one day be regarded as mysterious ruins, and our devices as magical relics. The sands of time are indifferent. They bury genius and folly alike. Still, something endures. The stones of Giza continued to hum with quiet defiance, as if whispering across millennia. Remember, modern technology has begun to rediscover what the ancients may have known intuitively. Ground-penetrating radar reveals hidden chambers within the pyramids. Satellite imagery maps the precise geometry of the Giza Plateau, showing patterns and proportions that mirror cosmic structures. Artificial intelligence is beginning to decode hieroglyphs that hint at forgotten sciences, algorithms concealed within art. It's as though the ancients anticipated our return, leaving breadcrumbs in plain sight. Their monuments were built not just to honor gods or kings, but to outlast ignorance, to survive long enough for us to find them again. And now that we have the tools to measure, analyze, and see what they saw, the question resurfaces. What if we are merely reawakening a science that was ancient before we were born? If the fall of their knowledge was inevitable, perhaps its rediscovery is too... Because truth, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of and when it does, it challenges everything we think we know, not only about history, but about ourselves. As the sun sets over the Giza Plateau, its golden light ignites the limestone faces of the pyramids, and for a fleeting moment, they seem to breathe again, no longer relics of a forgotten past, but living monuments whispering across time. The desert wind moves softly over the sand, carrying the same dust that once clung to the hands of those who built them. In that silence, a question lingers, not of how, but why. Why were these structures made with such care, such impossible precision, such determination to endure? Were they tombs of kings, or testimonies of knowledge meant to outlast empires? The Egyptians believed that the universe itself was an intricate order. Mohat, where everything, from the stars above to the grain of sand below, had meaning and place. Their architecture mirrored this cosmic harmony. The Great Pyramid wasn't simply a burial chamber. It was a mirror of the heavens, a reflection of cosmic truth, grounded in stone. Every angle, every proportion, every alignment whispered the same principle, that the human mind could reach into eternity by understanding the geometry of creation. What if that understanding was not symbolic, but literal? What if the Egyptians had unlocked a way to harness natural laws, sound, magnetism, resonance, to interact with the very forces that shape reality? Today, we study their monuments with lasers and satellites, mapping every inch, analyzing every grain. We find measurements that correspond with planetary ratios, distances between celestial bodies, and even the curvature of the Earth. Coincidence? Perhaps. Or perhaps these patterns were left behind intentionally, a kind of ancient data, preserved for a future that would have the eyes to see it. We are that future, and yet we still struggle to read what they wrote. What if the true technology of the ancients wasn't metal or machinery, but consciousness itself? What if they understood that thought, sound, and energy are interconnected, that the mind can shape matter when attuned to nature's frequencies? Modern physics hints at similar truths: resonance, vibration, quantum entanglement. The same concepts that define the smallest particles in the universe echo faintly in the myths of old. Could it be that the Egyptians were scientists of the unseen, experimenters, in a field of energy that modern science is only now beginning to rediscover? Perhaps the real marvel of Egypt is not the engineering, but the intention behind it, to build something that would last beyond memory, beyond the rise and fall of nations. In this, they succeeded. Thousands of years later, their creations still still challenge our logic, still stand against the desert's relentless erosion. They have survived floods, earthquakes, wars, and ignorance. The messages carved in stone have endured even when written words perished in flame. That endurance is their technology, permanence born of understanding. But even more haunting is the thought that these monuments were not built for the people of their time. They were built for us, for the future. For a world that would forget and then remember. When we decode their alignments, when we measure their precision, when we stare up at their towering forms and ask, how? We are doing exactly what they intended. We are remembering. The ancients may have foreseen that knowledge is never truly lost, only buried. That someday, when humanity was once again ready to listen, the stones would speak. And they do. Every year, as the solstice sun crowns the apex of the Great Pyramid, it casts light through ancient corridors with perfect timing, a silent reminder of cosmic unity. It's as if the monument itself is saying, you were never the first to understand. You are only the next to awaken. Modern technology, for all its wonders, still pales before the elegance of what stands at Giza. We build fast, they build forever. We separate science and spirit. They saw them as one, and maybe that's the secret we lost. Not a tool, not a machine, but a philosophy. The understanding that true technology serves harmony, not power. That the universe itself is a machine of balance, and we are its engineers. So perhaps the real lesson of Egypt as lost science isn't that they had advanced tools, but that they had advanced minds. Minds capable of seeing unity in all things, the mathematical and the mystical, the physical and the spiritual, the eternal and the fleeting. That was their genius, and it might yet be ours again. As darkness falls, the last light fades from the pyramid's edge, and the stars begin to emerge. The same stars the ancient builders gazed upon, the same constellations that guided their hands. In that moment, time collapses. The present and the past meet in silence, and you can almost hear the heartbeat of a civilization that refused to die. The pyramids, stoic and unblinking, stand as both question and answer. Maybe the Egyptians didn't build the pyramids for eternity. Maybe they built them with eternity, as participants in a cosmic equation we're only beginning to solve. And as we look upon them now, armed with our lasers, drones, and quantum theories, perhaps it is not they who seem primitive, but us, for forgetting what they knew, because in the end, the greatest mystery of all isn't how they built the pyramids. It's what they were trying to tell us. Maybe the pyramids were not tombs, but textbooks carved in stone. Lessons written for those who would one day return to read, to remember, and to finally understand that the science we seek in the stars may have been buried beneath our feet all along.